The modern world is louder than ever. Notifications chase us from the moment we wake up. Bills sit heavy on the kitchen table. Relationships strain under unspoken words, and a silent storm of doubt churns within. We are told that this is normal. Stress, anxiety, loneliness, and exhaustion have become badges of honor in a culture that never lets us pause. We run faster, work harder, strive for more, believing that one day, maybe after the next promotion, maybe after the next vacation, maybe after we finally fix ourselves, peace will arrive. And yet, it never does. The finish line keeps moving. The relief we crave slips further away. And in the quiet moments before sleep, many of us feel the ache of something missing, something we can never quite name. This endless chase leaves us weary. Our minds race like crowded highways. Our hearts feel heavy with questions we cannot answer. Why am I never enough? Why do I keep repeating the same mistakes? Why does happiness always fade the moment I grasp it? These are not abstract concerns. They are the lived reality of millions across the globe, especially in places where the pace of life leaves no space for silence. The pain is real, and it is shared. But what if the problem is not you? What if the endless pressure to improve, to fix, to outperform is not the path to peace, but the very trap keeping you away from it? What if the door to freedom has been open all along, waiting not for your perfection, but for your willingness to pause and see clearly? Ancient wisdom whispers a radical truth. You are not broken. You were never broken. The stillness you seek is already here, beneath the noise, beneath the restless stories of the mind. The teachings of the Buddha are not distant relics of a foreign land. They are living medicine for the wounds of modern life. They offer not blind belief, but practical ways to breathe again, to release, to remember who you are beneath the storms of fear and desire. This journey we are about to walk together is not a lecture. It is not another checklist of things you must fix. It is a gentle unfolding, 10 doorways into the struggles you already know so well: stress, money, relationships, regret, anxiety, perfectionism, silence, awareness, and the search for meaning. At each doorway, we will meet the pain honestly. We will name it without flinching, and then we will discover the compassionate light that Buddhist wisdom shines upon it. These are not rules to obey, but invitations to freedom. They are practices anyone can hold, regardless of culture or belief, because they touch something universal, the human heart that longs to rest. As you listen, let the words move slowly. Imagine them as calm waves meeting the shore of your own restless mind. You do not need to memorize. You do not need to analyze. You only need to allow yourself to feel. Somewhere within these teachings, you may hear your own hidden truth echo back to you. Somewhere in this path, you may find the relief you thought was far away, but that was waiting quietly inside you all along. This is the beginning. A beginning not of striving, but of remembering. A beginning not of becoming, but of being. Tonight, we step onto the path together, not to escape life, but to finally arrive home within it. And with that first step, we open the way to the first truth. That peace is not outside, but already within, waiting for you to pause and listen. There is a weight pressing on modern life that few can escape. It shows up in the tightness of your shoulders, in the restless thoughts that spin even when the room is quiet, in the way your breath grows shallow as you stare at endless screens. This weight is called stress. Doctors diagnose it, companies discuss it, self-help books promise to fix it, but still it lingers, shaping every hour of our days. Stress is not only an occasional visitor anymore. It has become the silent background of life. Think of a typical morning. The alarm pierces your sleep before dawn, emails already waiting, bills unpaid, responsibilities stacked high. Even before you drink your first cup of coffee, your body is flooded with tension. You may not notice, because it feels normal now, but your heart beats faster, your mind is preparing for battle. You scroll through the news and find more reasons to worry. You look at your calendar and feel the pressure of too many tasks. The day has not even begun, and yet a storm is already raging inside. This storm is not just in your head. It shows up in your body as headaches, fatigue, shallow breathing, and restless nights. It shows up in your emotions as irritability, numbness, or quiet despair. It shows up in your relationships as short tempers and disconnection. Stress is not a private burden. It spills into every part of your life. The world tells you to push through, to toughen up, to hustle harder. But deep inside, you know this cannot be the answer. You know the pace is unsustainable. You know something has to change. And yet many of us cling to stress as if it were proof of our value. We secretly believe that if we are busy, we must be important. If we are tired, we must be working hard. If we are anxious, it must mean we care. We let stress become our identity, as if peace were something lazy people indulge in, while the rest of us keep running on empty. But what if this belief is backwards? What if the truth is that stress is not proof of life, but a thief of life? What if peace is not weakness, but the deepest strength you could ever know? Buddhist wisdom meets this pain with clarity. The Buddha saw that suffering often begins not in the world itself, but in the way our minds grasp, cling, and resist. Stress is born when we demand that life obey our wishes, when we fear losing what we love, when we chase outcomes we cannot control. Imagine holding a rope so tightly that your hands begin to bleed. The pain does not come from the rope itself, but from the way you cling to it. Stress is like this. We hold on to expectations, to fears, to endless what-ifs, and we do not notice how our grip is cutting us open. The first step toward release is awareness. Stress thrives in the shadows, when we move through the day on autopilot. But when we pause, when we name what is happening, we begin to loosen the grip. This is where mindfulness enters, not as a trendy word, not as a quick fix, but as a living practice of seeing clearly. To be mindful is to notice, without judgment, what is happening right now. It is to feel the tightness in your chest and simply breathe with it instead of running from it. It is to watch your thoughts rushing like wild horses and gently remind yourself, these are just thoughts. They are not you. Imagine standing by a river. Leaves float on the water, carried by the current. Each leaf is a thought, a worry about tomorrow, a regret from yesterday, a list of tasks. Most of the time, we jump into the river, grabbing at the leaves, drowning in them. Mindfulness invites you to step onto the bank, to watch the leaves drift by without needing to control them. Stress loses its power when you stop drowning in it, when you learn to observe it with gentle distance. Breathing is the simplest doorway. Inhale slowly, feel the air entering. Exhale fully, feel the body soften. This is not magic, and yet it is. The breath anchors you to the present moment, reminding you that life is happening here, not in the stories of the past or the worries of the future. Each conscious breath is a small act of freedom. Each pause is a quiet rebellion against the culture that tells you to keep running. But awareness alone is not enough. The Buddha also taught compassion for others, yes, but also for yourself. Stress often grows harsher because we scold ourselves for feeling it. We tell ourselves we should be stronger, calmer, more capable. We pile judgment on top of exhaustion, as if cruelty could somehow fix what kindness could not. Compassion breaks this cycle. It says you are human, and to be human is to feel pressure. You are not failing because you are stressed. You are simply alive in a world that moves too fast. Compassion does not mean giving up responsibility. It means carrying it with gentleness. It means speaking to yourself the way you would to a dear friend, with patience, with encouragement, with understanding. Instead of saying, "I cannot handle this," compassion whispers, "This is hard, and I am doing my best." That simple shift can soften the edges of even the heaviest burden. Ancient teachings also remind us that nothing lasts. Stress feels endless, but like all conditions, it changes. The storm clouds will not stay forever. This truth of impermanence can give you courage to breathe through the hardest hours, knowing that they too will pass. It also teaches you not to build your identity around stress. You are not a stressed person. You are awareness itself, larger than any passing storm. When you remember this, stress becomes not a prison, but a teacher. It shows you where you cling. It shows you where you resist. And in showing you, it gives you the chance to let go. Each time you pause, breathe, and release, you taste a freedom that cannot be bought or earned. It is already yours. Asterisk stress is real. Its weight is heavy, but it is not final. It is not who you are. The Buddhist path offers a way not to erase life's demands, but to meet them without losing yourself. Peace does not wait until every problem is solved. Peace can be touched now in the simple act of noticing, of breathing, of being. And yet, this is only the beginning. We have looked at stress as the surface storm, but beneath it lies an even deeper current. The feeling that we are never enough, that we must constantly prove our worth. This next current is what fuels so much of our anxiety about money, success, and survival. To understand it, we must turn toward the hidden hunger that drives our days. The hunger for security in a world that never promises it. Money. For many people, it is not simply paper, coins, or numbers glowing on a screen. It is the unspoken measure of worth, the silent judge of success, the invisible weight carried from morning until night. We say that money cannot buy happiness, and yet our lives are structured around it. Rent is due, groceries must be paid for, children need clothes, debts demand repayment. The truth is simple. Money shapes our choices, our opportunities, even our sense of safety. And in that shaping, it often becomes the root of endless stress. Think of how often you worry about finances. Perhaps it is a sudden expense that throws your plans into chaos. Perhaps it is the rising cost of living while your paycheck remains the same. Perhaps it is the comparison game when you see others enjoying vacations, bigger homes, or luxuries you cannot afford. Each of these moments feeds the quiet fear. What if I do not have enough? What if I cannot keep up? What if everything I have built falls apart? These questions whisper in the background, and sometimes they scream. Money is practical, but it is also deeply emotional. For some, it carries the weight of childhood memories, nights when parents argued about bills, days when meals were scarce, the shame of wearing worn-out clothes. For others, it carries the heavy burden of identity. Success equals wealth. Failure equals struggle. In this way, money is never just about survival. It is about belonging, pride, dignity, and self-worth. No wonder it feels so consuming. And yet, the more we chase it, the more fragile our peace becomes. We tell ourselves that once we earn a little more, once we reach a certain number, the fear will disappear. But often, the opposite happens. The more we have, the more we worry about losing it. The larger the house, the heavier the mortgage. The higher the income, the greater the pressure to maintain the lifestyle. The finish line keeps moving, and peace remains out of reach. This cycle mirrors what the Buddha called craving. Craving is the restless hunger that convinces us that the next thing will finally complete us. It is not wrong to provide for yourself or your family. But when money becomes the foundation of your identity, when it becomes the only lens through which you measure your life, it turns into a trap. The Buddha compared craving to drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. No amount ever satisfies. So how do we step out of this trap? The answer is not to reject money or pretend it does not matter. Bills still exist. Mouths must still be fed. The wisdom lies not in denial, but in shifting our relationship with it. Mindfulness teaches us to see money for what it is, a tool, not a master. It can support life, but it cannot define life. It can ease suffering, but it cannot erase suffering. One practice is gratitude. Instead of focusing only on what is lacking, pause to notice what you already have. A roof, a meal, a moment of safety, these are not small. They are the foundation of countless lives across history. Gratitude does not erase struggle, but it softens the constant pull of not enough. When you see the richness already present, the hunger loosens its grip. Another practice is generosity. This may sound paradoxical. How can you give when you fear you do not have enough? But generosity is not only about grand gestures. It can be as simple as sharing a meal, offering time, or giving a kind word. The act of giving breaks the cycle of fear. It reminds you that your value is not tied to accumulation, but to connection. Ancient texts speak of generosity as the first step on the path to freedom, because it untangles the heart from greed. And perhaps most important is the practice of contentment. Contentment is not complacency. It is not giving up ambition or refusing to grow. Contentment is the ability to say, this moment as it is holds enough. It is the pause between cravings, the breath that allows you to rest. The Buddha once said that contentment is the greatest wealth. In a world that pushes us to always want more, to rest in enough is a radical act of peace. Imagine standing in a field at dusk. The sky is painted with gold, the air is cool, the earth beneath your feet is steady. In that moment, you do not need more to be whole. You already belong. This is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. True security is not found in the constant pursuit of wealth, but in the unshakable awareness that you are already alive, already here, already complete. This teaching does not erase the reality of financial hardship. Struggles may remain, challenges will arise, but it gives you a new way to meet them. Instead of collapsing into fear, you can meet each difficulty with clarity, patience, and compassion. You can see money as one thread in the fabric of life, not the whole cloth. You can breathe again, even when the bills still sit on the table. And here lies the bridge. Stress about money is not only about survival, it is often about how we compare ourselves to others, about the relationships we carry, about the expectations we feel from society and family. Money becomes tied to love, respect, and belonging, which means that to truly untangle this suffering, we must look beyond numbers and into the heart of human connection. Because what weighs on us even more than financial worry is the fear of losing our bonds, the pain of fractured relationships, the ache of loneliness, even in a crowded room. This next step in our journey will take us into that realm where the heart's deepest desires and deepest wounds reside. For if stress and money are heavy burdens, relationships are the mirror in which we see ourselves most clearly. And often, that reflection is filled with both longing and pain. Relationships are the beating heart of human life. They are the source of our greatest joy, but also of our deepest pain. From the moment we are born, we are wired for connection. We long to be seen, to be understood, to be loved. And yet, for so many people, relationships have become fragile, heavy with misunderstandings, silence, and disappointment. In a world where stress and money already weigh so heavily, the cracks in our relationships often feel unbearable. Think of the last argument you had with someone you love. The raised voices, the words spoken in frustration, the silence afterward that cut deeper than any insult. Or think of the slow drift, the way two people who once shared everything now speak only of schedules, chores, or practical details, as if the flame of intimacy has quietly gone out. These moments are not rare. They are the hidden backdrop of countless households, the quiet ache behind smiling photographs. At the root of much relational pain is unmet expectation. We imagine that love will complete us, that friendship will always sustain us, that family will never betray us. And when reality fails to meet these images, the disappointment burns. We ask ourselves, why does she not understand me? Why does he not care enough? Why do I always give more than I receive? These questions build walls of resentment, and over time, the walls grow so tall that we cannot even remember what brought us together in the first place. Not another source of pain is comparison. In the age of social media, we are constantly shown images of couples who seem happier, families who appear closer, friendships that look effortless. We compare our messy reality to their polished surface, and we conclude that something must be wrong with us. Why is my relationship not like that? Why does my family not look so harmonious? But these comparisons are illusions. They are snapshots, carefully chosen, not the whole truth. Still, they feed our insecurity, and insecurity feeds distance. And then there is the ache of loneliness. Loneliness is not just the absence of people. It is the absence of being truly seen. You can sit at a dinner table surrounded by others and still feel invisible. You can share a bed with a partner and still feel alone. Loneliness cuts deeply because it whispers that we are unworthy, that if others really knew us, they would not stay. This fear keeps us silent, keeps us from sharing our true selves, and in that silence, the loneliness deepens. The Buddha understood this suffering. He saw that clinging, attachment, and aversion lie at the root of relational pain. We cling to the image of how someone should be. We resist the reality of how they actually are. We grasp at the illusion of permanence, believing that relationships should remain unchanged, even though everything in life is impermanent. This clinging creates tension because reality never bows to our demands. So what is the way forward? Buddhist wisdom does not say we should withdraw from relationships. On the contrary, it says that love, compassion, and community are essential to human life. But it teaches a different kind of love, one rooted not in possession, but in freedom. This is where the practice of metta, or loving kindness, enters. Loving kindness is the radical act of wishing well, not only for those we love easily, but also for ourselves, for strangers, and even for those who have hurt us. It begins with a simple intention. May you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. At first, it may feel mechanical, but with practice, it softens the heart. It loosens the tight grip of resentment. It reminds us that beneath all the layers of misunderstanding, each person is simply a human being who longs for the same things we do: safety, love, and peace. When we practice loving kindness, we shift from demanding love to offering love. We stop asking, "What am I not getting?" and start living the question, "What can I give?" This does not mean becoming a doormat or ignoring our own needs. True loving kindness includes the self. It says, "I too deserve peace. I too deserve understanding." It is a balanced love, free from the poison of constant expectation. Another profound practice is deep listening. Most conflicts are not born from malice, but from not being heard. We listen to respond, not to understand. We wait for our turn to speak, rehearsing our defense instead of truly entering the other person's world. The Buddha taught that deep listening is a form of compassion. It means putting aside judgment, setting aside the urge to fix, and simply being present. When someone feels genuinely heard, walls begin to crumble. Resentment softens. Connection returns. Forgiveness is another doorway. Many relationships are haunted by old wounds, words that cannot be unsaid, betrayals that cannot be undone. We replay these moments, punishing the other person and punishing ourselves. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing harm. It means choosing not to carry the burning coal any longer. The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Forgiveness is laying down the coal. It is freeing yourself, whether or not the other person changes. All of these practices, loving kindness, deep listening, forgiveness, rest on one truth: impermanence. People change. Relationships change. The person you love today will not be the same in 5 years, or even tomorrow. This is not a tragedy. It is life. When we stop demanding permanence, we can finally appreciate what is here. We can cherish the laugh shared in the kitchen, the comfort of a hand held, the warmth of companionship, knowing that these moments are precious precisely because they are fleeting. This shift in perspective transforms relationships. Instead of clinging, we hold lightly. Instead of demanding, we appreciate. Instead of resenting, we forgive. And in that shift, the heaviness begins to lift, but the path is not easy. It asks us to let go of control, to face our own fears of rejection and loss. It asks us to soften when every part of us wants to harden. This is why the practice must be gentle, patient, and consistent. Each small act of kindness, each moment of listening, each breath of forgiveness is like planting a seed. Over time, those seeds grow into resilience, into trust, into love that is not fragile, but steady. Still, even when we know these truths, even when we practice them, there are times when relationships remain strained. There are wounds that do not heal quickly, patterns that repeat, silences that linger. And it is here, in this tension, that another layer of suffering emerges. The weight of regret and guilt from the past. The words we wish we had not said. The moments when we turned away instead of leaning in. The choices that hurt those we loved most. This is where the next part of our journey leads us, not just into the present pain of relationships, but into the echoes of the past that continue to haunt them. For it is not only today's conflicts that burden the heart, but yesterday's mistakes that still whisper in the dark. And to meet them, we must learn a new kind of compassion, the compassion that heals our own wounded history. Regret is a quiet shadow that follows many of us through life. It comes uninvited, often in the middle of the night when the world is still. We remember the words we shouted in anger, the promises we broke, the people we pushed away when they needed us most. Regret is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers, reminding us of small moments we cannot change, the phone call we never made, the apology we never spoke, the kindness we withheld because we were too tired, too proud, or too afraid. Guilt grows from this same soil. It can sit heavy in the chest, like a weight that will not lift. We replay past choices as if doing so could somehow alter them. We say to ourselves, if only I had done better, things would not have turned out this way. This cycle of regret and guilt often poisons our relationships in the present. We overcompensate, clinging too tightly. Or we withdraw, believing we do not deserve love. The past becomes a prison, and we carry its chains even into moments of joy. The Buddha saw clearly that suffering arises when we cling to what has already passed. The past is gone. No amount of replaying can bring it back. And yet, we treat it as if it were still alive, punishing ourselves for a version of us that no longer exists. In truth, regret is not about what happened. It is about how we relate to what happened. The same memory can be either a source of endless shame or a doorway to wisdom, depending on how we hold it. This is where the practice of karuna, or compassion, becomes essential. Compassion is often thought of as something we give to others, but it must also be given to ourselves. Compassion looks at our past mistakes and says, "You did not know then what you know now. You acted from the tools and the understanding you had at the time. You were human, learning, stumbling, trying." Compassion does not excuse harm, but it acknowledges the truth of imperfection. It replaces judgment with understanding. Imagine a child learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they bump their head. No one would say, "You are a failure for falling." Instead, we encourage them. Get up, try again. You are learning. In the same way, our past mistakes were part of our stumbling, part of our growth. Yet, as adults, we often forget this kindness. We treat ourselves as if we should have been flawless from the start. Compassion invites us to see ourselves once again as learners, to soften the harsh verdicts we hand down on our own hearts. Forgiveness grows from compassion. True forgiveness is not about pretending the past never happened. It is not about erasing or minimizing pain. Forgiveness is about releasing the story that defines us by our mistakes. It is choosing not to keep drinking the poison of resentment, whether directed at others or at ourselves. Forgiveness says, "This hurt me, but it will not own me. I will not keep carrying this weight." One of the Buddha's teachings compares holding on to resentment to grasping a burning torch while trying to strike someone else. In the end, the hand that suffers most is our own. By letting go, we do not deny justice, but we free ourselves from endless suffering. But how do we forgive ourselves? It begins with presence. Instead of running from the uncomfortable memory, we sit with it. We breathe with it. We acknowledge it without judgment. Then we ask, what was missing in me at that time? Was it clarity, patience, safety, guidance, love? By naming what was missing, we understand not only the mistake, but also the need that drove it. That understanding creates space for healing. We can also practice rituals of release. Some people write letters they will never send, speaking words of apology or forgiveness that were never spoken. Others sit in meditation, bringing to mind the person they hurt, silently repeating, "I am sorry. I forgive you. I release this." These acts are not about erasing the past. They are about loosening its grip on the present. Healing regret is not a one-time act. It is a process. Old memories may return again and again, but each time they do, we have a choice: to drown in them or to meet them with compassion. Over time, the sharp edges soften. The memory remains, but it loses its power to define us. And here is the deeper truth. Regret itself can be a teacher. It shows us the values we care about most. If you regret not showing kindness, it is because kindness matters to you. If you regret not listening, it is because connection matters to you. Regret points us toward what we love. When we hold it with compassion, it becomes not a chain, but a compass. This transformation has profound effects on relationships. When we release guilt, we stop overcompensating. When we forgive ourselves, we stop withdrawing. We show up more authentically, more fully. We stop relating to others from a place of shame and begin relating from a place of honesty. Our love becomes less about fear and more about presence. The Buddha often reminded his followers that each moment is fresh. Each breath is a chance to begin again. No matter how heavy the past, the present is always open. You do not need to wait for a new year, a new milestone, or a new life. Right now, in this breath, you can begin again. This is the ultimate gift of compassion, the freedom to start over again and again, as many times as needed. And yet, even when we soften regret and heal guilt, another struggle often arises. We look at ourselves, our flaws, our scars, our imperfections, and we feel ashamed. We hide the cracks in our character, fearing that if others saw them, they would no longer love us. This shame drives us to chase impossible perfection, to wear masks that exhaust us, to deny the simple truth of who we are. But what if imperfection itself is sacred? What if the very cracks we hide are the places where light enters? This is where our path naturally leads to the profound truth that peace is not found in flawless perfection, but in the embrace of impermanence and imperfection. There is a story told in Zen tradition of a monk who owned a bull. It was not made of gold or crystal. It was not flawless or new. In fact, the bowl was cracked. Yet the monk cherished it, not despite its imperfection, but because of it. One morning, as sunlight streamed through his window, he noticed how the light caught the crack, creating a shimmer across the bowl's surface. What had once been seen as broken became the very thing that made the bowl beautiful. This story is not really about pottery. It is about us, that we live in a culture obsessed with perfection. From glossy magazine covers to carefully curated social media feeds, we are surrounded by images of flawless bodies, perfect homes, smiling families, and endless success. The message is loud and constant. Hide your cracks, cover your scars, smooth over your flaws. Be polished, be strong, be perfect. And yet, beneath that glossy surface, millions of people carry the quiet shame of imperfection. We compare ourselves to impossible standards and always come up short. We notice every flaw in the mirror, every stumble in our careers, every mistake in our relationships. We whisper to ourselves, "I am not enough. I will never be enough." Shame grows in the shadows, feeding on silence. It convinces us that we must earn love, that we must earn belonging, that we must earn peace by hiding who we truly are. But Buddhist wisdom offers a radically different view. The Buddha taught the truth of impermanence, anicca. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. Our bodies, our minds, our relationships, our circumstances, everything is in constant motion. To demand perfection in a world of impermanence is to demand the impossible. It is like asking the river to freeze in time, like demanding the clouds to never move. Imperfection is not the enemy of peace. It is the evidence of life. Just as scars on the body tell the story of survival, the cracks in our hearts tell the story of resilience. To embrace imperfection is not to settle for mediocrity, but to awaken to the sacred truth that life, in all its mésalliances, is already whole. Think of the Japanese art of kintsugi. When pottery breaks, it is not thrown away. Instead, it is mended with gold. The cracks are not hidden. They are highlighted. They become the most precious part of the piece. This art teaches us that brokenness is not the end of value, but the beginning of beauty. In the same way, our wounds, once healed with compassion, become the golden seams of our lives. They do not make us less. They make us more. The pursuit of perfection, on the other hand, is exhausting. It turns life into a competition, a constant project of self-improvement. You look at your flaws as problems to be fixed instead of experiences to be honored. You hide your scars, and in doing so, you also hide your light. The Buddha called this clinging, the endless grasping for an image of ourselves that is unshakable, flawless, eternal. But such an image does not exist. And the tighter we cling to it, the more suffering we create. Imagine a tree standing in a forest. Its trunk is twisted, its bark rough, some branches broken. And yet it stands tall, giving shade, providing shelter, bearing fruit. No one looks at the tree and says, "You are unworthy because you are not straight, because your bark is scarred." We accept the tree as it is, even admire its uniqueness. But when we look at ourselves, we are not so kind. We demand that we be straight, smooth, flawless. We forget that we too are part of nature, twisted, scarred, and yet profoundly beautiful. The practice of self-acceptance begins with seeing clearly. Instead of turning away from your imperfections, turn toward them. Notice the lines on your face, not as signs of failure, but as maps of laughter, grief, endurance, and time. Notice the scars on your heart, not as reasons for shame, but as proof of courage. Notice the ways you have fallen and risen again, and see them for what they are, the gold that fills the cracks. Mindfulness helps us in this practice. When shame arises, mindfulness teaches us to observe it without merging with it. Instead of saying, "I am broken," we learn to say, shame is present. This simple shift creates space. It reminds us that shame is not who we are. It is a passing storm in the sky of our awareness. And like all storms, it will pass. Compassion deepens the practice. Imagine placing a hand gently on your heart and saying, "It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to be human." These words may feel strange at first, even unbelievable. But over time, they soften the inner critic. They remind you that worth is not earned by perfection, but is inherent in your very being. This acceptance does not mean ignoring growth. It does not mean saying, "I will never change, I will never improve." Growth is natural. We all learn, we all evolve. But growth and perfection are not the same. Growth is rooted in compassion. Perfection is rooted in fear. Growth says, "I am enough now, and I can still learn." Perfection says, "I am not enough, and I must fix myself to deserve love." Which voice leads to peace? When we embrace imperfection, something surprising happens. We become more connected to others. Our cracks make us relatable. Our flaws make us human. Perfection isolates us, but imperfection unites us. Think of the last time someone shared a vulnerable truth with you, the moment they admitted their fear, their failure, their struggle. Did you judge them? Or did you feel closer to them? Vulnerability opens the door to true intimacy. It is not in our polished masks that we connect, but in our honest scars. This is why the monk loved his cracked bowl. The crack made it unique. The crack told a story. The crack allowed the light to shine through. And yet, even when we understand this, even when we taste the relief of embracing imperfection, there remains a subtle pressure. We may say, "I accept my flaws, but I must still integrate everything into a perfect whole. I must still assemble myself into something complete." This subtle demand can become another trap. And it is this trap that our journey will confront next. The quiet pressure to fix ourselves into a perfect puzzle, rather than to rest in the truth that we are already whole in our ever-changing nature. The search for wholeness is one of the most common pursuits of modern life. We read books about self-integration. We attend workshops about personal growth. We make lists of all the parts of ourselves we believe must finally come together. The promise is seductive, that one day, when every broken piece is aligned, when every weakness is conquered, when every shadow is healed, we will finally feel complete. And yet, the harder we chase this perfect assembly, the more restless we become. It is like trying to complete a puzzle where the pieces are always changing shape. Just when you think you have arranged everything, something shifts. A new challenge appears. An old wound resurfaces. A part of yourself you thought you had fixed shows up again in a different form. The frustration is exhausting. We wonder, will I ever be whole? Will I ever stop chasing? Buddhist wisdom answers with clarity. You are not a puzzle to be solved. You are not a fixed structure waiting to be assembled. You are a living process, constantly changing, constantly unfolding. The idea of a perfect, permanent self is an illusion. The Buddha taught that what we call self is actually a collection of processes, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, memories, consciousness, all of which rise and fall like waves. None of them stay. None of them define you. This truth is liberating. It means you do not need to force everything inside you into perfect harmony before you can rest. You do not need to wait for the day when every contradiction disappears. Peace is possible even in the midst of contradiction. Think of a mosaic. From up close, you see many different pieces, some bright, some sharp, some smooth. They do not match. They do not blend. But when you step back, you see the beauty of the whole image. The pieces were never meant to be identical. They were meant to coexist. In the same way, your being is not meant to be perfectly symmetrical. You are a mosaic of experiences, emotions, strengths, and struggles. Together, they create the unique beauty of your life. When you stop demanding that everything fit neatly, a new kind of freedom arises. You can feel joy in one moment and sorrow in the next, and neither cancels the other out. You can be wise one day and foolish the next, and both are part of being human. You can feel compassion in the morning and irritation in the evening, and still be whole. Wholeness is not about eliminating contradiction. It is about holding contradiction with compassion. This practice requires letting go of the inner critic that demands coherence at all costs. That voice says, you cannot be both strong and weak. You cannot be both kind and angry. You must choose who you are and stay consistent. But life does not work this way. You are not one thing. You are many things. You are ever changing. When you soften the grip of that inner critic, you discover a deeper peace, the peace of allowing yourself to be complex. Mindfulness supports this practice. In meditation, thoughts and feelings rise and fall like clouds. Instead of organizing them into categories, you simply watch. You notice anger arise, then pass. You notice joy arise, then pass. You notice fear arise, then pass. You begin to see that you are not any of these passing states. You are the awareness that holds them all. This awareness does not need to be organized. It is already vast enough to contain everything. Another teaching that supports this freedom is the middle way. The middle way says that liberation is not found in extremes, neither in indulgence nor in denial, neither in obsession nor in apathy. When applied inwardly, it means we do not need to obsess over perfect integration, nor do we need to abandon ourselves. We can simply allow our inner world to be dynamic, changing, alive. This balance relieves the pressure to constantly fix. Imagine a garden. In one corner, roses bloom. In another, weeds sprout. Some plants are thriving, others are struggling. The gardener does not demand that the garden look like a perfect grid. They tend it, yes. They water, prune, and nourish. But they also accept that a garden is alive, always in motion, never finished. You are a garden. You do not need to be a flawless sculpture. You need only to be tended with care. When we live this way, a profound ease enters our relationships, our work, and our inner life. We stop measuring ourselves against impossible ideals. We stop demanding that others be consistent when we ourselves are not. We stop waiting for the day when we will finally feel complete and begin living in the wholeness that is already here. This does not mean life becomes effortless. Challenges remain. Emotions still rise. But the difference is that we no longer see them as evidence of failure. They are simply part of the flow. Like waves on the ocean, they rise and fall without disturbing the depth of the water. The Buddha once compared the mind to the sky. Clouds may gather, storms may rage, but the sky itself is untouched. In the same way, your awareness remains whole, no matter what passes through it. You do not need to assemble yourself into perfection. You only need to rest in the vastness of your true nature. And yet, many of us still fall into the trap of endless striving. Even when we learn to embrace imperfection, even when we glimpse the freedom of wholeness, we slip back into the habit of constant self-improvement. We live as if life itself were a project, as if we were problems to be solved. This endless striving exhausts us. It keeps us running on the treadmill of better, never allowing us to rest in the now dot. It is here that the journey naturally turns toward another essential truth. The middle way is freedom from relentless self-improvement. For if we are ever to find peace, we must learn to release the need to constantly fix ourselves and discover the radical strength of simply being. For as long as many of us can remember, we have been taught that life is a project. From childhood, we are graded, measured, ranked. We learn that our value depends on performance, on good grades, on achievements, on how well we please the expectations of parents, teachers, and society. Later, as adults, the project does not end. It only changes shape. Now it is about the career ladder, the perfect body, the successful family, the right house, the endless list of goals to check off before we can finally rest. The promise of self-improvement is always just out of reach. Lose a little more weight, then you will be confident. Earn a little more money, then you will be secure. Fix this flaw, then you will be lovable. But as soon as one goal is reached, another rises. The finish line keeps moving, and we keep running breathless toward a peace that never arrives. This cycle is exhausting. It turns life into an endless audition. You wake up each morning not to live, but to perform. You carry a hidden belief. I am not enough as I am. I must prove myself worthy. Even small joys are stolen by this belief. You cannot enjoy success because it is never big enough. You cannot enjoy rest because rest feels like laziness. You cannot enjoy love because you are busy worrying if you deserve it. The Buddha saw this clearly. He called it craving, the restless desire to become something else, to fix ourselves into a better version, to escape the present moment by running toward the future. Craving is like a fire that never stops burning. We feed it with effort, with ambition, with relentless striving, but the flames only grow higher. And yet, the solution is not to swing to the opposite extreme. Some hear this teaching and think, so I should abandon all effort? I should do nothing? I should stop caring? But this is not the path either. To collapse into apathy is not freedom. It is another form of suffering. The Buddha discovered a different path, the middle way. The middle way does not demand perfection, nor does it encourage neglect. It is the balance between effort and rest, between caring and letting go, between striving and surrender. It says you are already enough, and you can still grow. You are already whole, and you can still learn. Growth is natural, but it does not need to be forced. Think of a flower. It does not strain to bloom. It does not compare itself to the tree beside it. It simply unfolds when the season is right. If you tried to force it open before its time, you would destroy it. In the same way, true growth comes from patience, from conditions of care and sunlight and water, not from relentless pushing. The middle way teaches us to allow growth to unfold in its natural rhythm, without turning life into a war against ourselves. This balance is revolutionary in a culture that thrives on extremes. We are told we must either push ourselves harder or give up entirely. But the middle way invites us to walk gently, to breathe, to live in the space between. One practice that supports this is mindful effort. Instead of asking, how can I improve myself? We ask, what does this moment need? Sometimes it needs discipline. Sometimes it needs rest. Sometimes it needs courage. Sometimes it needs surrender. Mindful effort listens instead of demanding. It adjusts instead of forcing. Another practice is learning to pause. When the inner voice says, you must do more, you must be more. Pause, breathe, ask yourself, who am I trying to impress? What am I afraid of? Often, you will see that the demand is not from your true self, but from fear, from comparison, from the endless treadmill of proving. Pausing interrupts the cycle. It reminds you that peace is not waiting at the finish line. It is available now, in this breath. Compassion is also essential here. Without compassion, the middle way becomes another project. I must practice balance perfectly. But compassion reminds you that balance is never perfect. Some days you will strive too hard. Other days you will collapse into apathy. This is natural. The practice is not about perfection. It is about remembering again and again to return to the middle. Each return is a victory. Imagine a tightrope walker. They do not stand frozen in perfect stillness. They sway, they wobble, they adjust with each step. Balance is not the absence of movement. It is the art of returning, again and again, to center. Your life is the same. The middle way is not a rigid path. It is the gentle practice of returning, of realigning, of remembering. This practice frees you from conditional self-love. Conditional self-love says, I will love myself when I achieve this, when I fix that, when I finally become who I should be. But unconditional self-love, rooted in the middle way, says, I am worthy now. I can grow, but I do not need to earn my worth. This truth is the antidote to endless striving. The relief of this teaching is profound. Imagine setting down a heavy backpack you have carried for years. At first, you feel strange, even exposed. But then, you notice the lightness. You notice the freedom of moving without the constant weight. This is what it feels like to step off the treadmill of self-improvement. Life becomes less about chasing and more about being. And yet, there are wounds that striving cannot touch. Even when we practice balance, even when we soften our efforts, we still carry unspoken pain traumas, disappointments, grief that live beneath the surface. These wounds cannot be healed by effort. They require a different medicine: silence, presence, and compassion. This is where the journey leads next into the profound practice of noble silence, where healing happens not through words, but through the quiet embrace of simply being with what hurts. There are pains that words cannot reach. They live beneath the surface, in places language cannot touch. Perhaps it was a childhood marked by absence, or a moment of betrayal you still cannot explain, or the quiet loneliness of feeling unseen year after year. These wounds do not always cry out loudly. Sometimes they remain buried, appearing only as tension in the body, as fatigue that never lifts, as sudden anger or sadness that seems out of proportion to the present moment. We try to heal them with words. We analyze, explain, rationalize. We tell ourselves stories about what happened, why it happened, how it should have happened. And yet, often the more we explain, the further away the healing feels. Words circle around the wound, but never touch its core. The truth is, some pain cannot be solved by thought. Some pain can only be healed by presence. Asterisk, this is the gift of noble silence. In the Buddhist tradition, noble silence is not merely the absence of speech. It is a living presence, a profound listening without judgment, without agenda. It is the space where wounds are allowed to breathe, where the inner child who never had words for their suffering is finally given company. Noble silence is not empty. It is full with compassion, with attention, with tenderness. Imagine sitting beside a dear friend who is grieving. You do not rush to fix their sorrow. You do not flood them with advice. You simply sit, perhaps holding their hand, breathing with them, letting them know they are not alone. This is the essence of noble silence. It is the posture of healing, the willingness to remain present with pain without trying to control it. When we offer this presence to ourselves, something begins to shift. The nervous system, so accustomed to bracing against discomfort, slowly softens. The body learns that it no longer needs to fight or flee. The pain that once felt unbearable becomes bearable, not because it disappears, but because it is finally held with kindness. This practice is especially important for the wounded child within. Many of us carry an inner child who is left unseen, unheard, or unprotected. That child does not need more explanations. They do not need to be convinced with logic. They need presence. They need to feel, perhaps for the first time, that someone will stay, that someone will listen, that someone will not abandon them. When you sit in noble silence with your own pain, you become that someone. You become the parent, the friend, the protector your younger self longed for. At first, silence may feel unbearable. The mind will want to escape, to distract, to fill the space with noise. But if you stay, if you breathe, if you soften, the silence will slowly reveal itself not as emptiness, but as sanctuary. In that sanctuary, memories may arise. Feelings may surge. You may cry, tremble, or sit in stillness. Whatever arises, you do not need to judge. You do not need to fix. You only need to remain. Healing happens in the staying. Noble silence also transforms our relationships. Many conflicts persist not because the truth is too complex, but because no one has truly listened. When we practice noble silence with others, we offer them a rare gift, our full presence. We put aside the urge to interrupt, to defend, to prepare our reply. We simply listen. And often, that listening alone is enough to soften anger, to heal distance, to rebuild trust. Silence does not erase the past. It does not undo harm. But it creates the ground where forgiveness can grow, where compassion can take root. Without silence, our words are like seeds scattered on stone. With silence, they fall into fertile soil. In this way, noble silence is not passive. It is active, alive. It is the deepest form of engagement because it asks us to give the most precious gift we have, our attention. And yet, silence is not the end. It is a doorway. Beyond silence lies clarity, a new way of seeing. When we sit quietly with our storms, we begin to realize something profound. We are not the storm. We are the sky beneath the storm. Our thoughts, our emotions, our pain, these are like clouds, like weather passing through. They are powerful, but they are not permanent. They do not define us. Beneath them, there is a vastness, an awareness that is untouched. This insight is where our path naturally leads next. For once we have tasted the medicine of noble silence, we are ready to step into the wisdom of clear, seeing vipassana, the practice of watching thoughts and feelings with spacious awareness. It is here that we learn to stand firm, like a mountain, while storms of the mind pass overhead. It is here that we discover that the sky of our being has always been wide enough to hold everything. When silence has done its work, when we have dared to sit with the ache of unspoken wounds, something remarkable begins to happen. We start to notice the mind itself. Thoughts rise and fall like waves on an endless ocean. Emotions surge like sudden weather. Sometimes they come gently, like a summer breeze. Other times they crash violently, like a storm tearing through the night. And yet, in the practice of awareness, we begin to see we are not the storm. We are the sky beneath the storm. This realization is simple, but it changes everything. Most of the time, we live as though we are our thoughts. When anxiety appears, we say, I am anxious. When anger flares, we say, I am angry. When sadness lingers, we say, I am depressed. In those moments, our identity fuses with the storm. We forget that these states are temporary. We forget that we are larger than them. But the truth, seen clearly in the light of mindfulness, is that these thoughts and emotions are passing visitors. They come, they stay for a time, and then they go. The practice of vipassana clear seeing trains us to observe these movements of the mind with gentle clarity. Instead of drowning in them, we step back. Instead of saying, I am angry, we say, anger is present. Instead of, I am anxious, we say, anxiety is passing through. This small shift in language creates a vast shift in experience. Suddenly, we are no longer prisoners of our emotions. We are witnesses. We are the open sky, watching the clouds drift across. One method within vipassana is called noting. When a thought arises, we simply name it, planning, judging, remembering, worrying. When a sensation arises, we note it, tightness, warmth, restlessness. This is not about analysis or control. It is about recognition. Each note is like a bell that reminds us, this too is just an event. This too is impermanent. This too will pass. Imagine standing on a bridge over a river. Leaves float by on the current. Some are bright, some are dark, some are torn. Noting is like gently labeling the leaves as they pass. You do not jump into the river to grab them. You do not chase them downstream. You simply watch them drift. Over time, the practice reveals that the river is endless, but you are not the leaves. You are the one watching. This practice softens the grip of suffering. When fear arises, we do not need to be swallowed by it. We can note it. Fear, fear. When desire arises, we can note. Wanting, wanting. The act of noting creates space, and in that space, freedom appears. The storm still passes, but we are no longer tossed by every gust of wind dot. Yet Vipassana is not meant to be cold or detached. It is not about becoming a distant observer who no longer cares. True wisdom is always paired with compassion. The Buddha called this the soft sword of wisdom, a blade sharp enough to cut through delusion, but soft enough not to wound. Clarity without compassion becomes harsh judgment. Compassion without clarity becomes blind indulgence. Together, they create balance. For example, when we see that anxiety is present, wisdom recognizes its impermanence, but compassion adds, "May I hold this anxiety gently?" When we see anger arise, wisdom notes its causes, but compassion says, "This anger is a part of me that is hurting." This union allows us to stay open rather than closing down. It keeps the heart tender while the mind remains clear. Over time, this practice changes how we relate to life itself. A difficult conversation no longer drowns us in fear. It becomes a passing cloud. A surge of jealousy no longer defines us as a bad person. It becomes an opportunity to see the roots of craving. Even physical pain, when observed with mindful noting, transforms. Instead of, "This pain will destroy me," we notice tightness here, heat here, pressure here. The pain is still present, but the suffering lessens. This does not mean storms vanish. Life will always bring weather. Loss, illness, betrayal, uncertainty, these will come, just as storms sweep through the sky. But when we know we are the sky, not the storm, we stop fearing the weather. We can let it pass without losing ourselves in it. This truth is not abstract. It can be practiced in the most ordinary moments. Standing in line at the grocery store, impatience arises. You note, waiting, waiting. Driving in traffic, anger flares. You note, frustration, frustration. Lying awake at night, thoughts swirl. You note, thinking, thinking. Each note is like placing a lantern in the dark. Slowly, the darkness loses its power. And then something even deeper emerges. Equanimity. Equanimity is the calm center that remains steady no matter what arises. It is the mountain that does not move, even as storms sweep across its peak. This is not indifference. It is not numbness. It is the profound strength of remaining open and balanced. No matter what the world brings. When equanimity grows, life feels different. Success does not inflate the ego. Failure does not shatter the heart. Praise does not make us arrogant. Blame does not make us collapse. We see all of these as passing weather, not as ultimate truths. And in that seeing, we discover a freedom we never imagined possible. This freedom is not only for meditation halls or silent retreats. It is for everyday life. It is for the parent who feels overwhelmed by children's noise, for the worker who feels crushed by deadlines, for the student who fears failure, for the elder facing illness. In every situation, the practice of clear seeing can be a refuge. It is a way to remember that you are not your fear, not your stress, not your pain. You are the awareness vast enough to hold it all. And yet, even as we grow in wisdom and awareness, even as we learn to see storms as passing weather, there remains a final step, the deep homecoming to unconditioned peace. For awareness itself is not the end. Awareness is the doorway to the ultimate realization that you are already whole, already free, already home. This is where our journey now turns to the great return, the resting place beyond striving, beyond storms, beyond even the need to search. There comes a point on the path where striving falls silent. At first, we practice awareness to steady the mind. We learn to note thoughts, to name emotions, to breathe with sensations. We watch storms pass across the sky of our being, and we grow less afraid. But then, as the practice deepens, a quiet question arises. If I am not my thoughts, if I am not my emotions, if I am not even my constant striving, then who am I? The Buddha answered this question not with dogma, but with experience. He pointed toward the stillness that remains when the grasping stops. He called it nirvana, not a distant heaven, not an escape from life, but the extinguishing of the fires of craving, aversion, and delusion. It is the peace that is always here, obscured only by the restless winds of the mind. Most people spend their lives searching for peace as if it were somewhere else. We chase it in relationships, in wealth, in achievements, in recognition. We say, when I get there, then I will rest. But the paradox is that the search itself keeps us restless. The constant reaching keeps us from seeing what is already here. True peace cannot be achieved by searching, because it is not outside of us. It is the ground of our being, waiting to be noticed. Equanimity is the threshold to this realization. Equanimity is the deep balance of mind that no longer clings to pleasure or resists pain. It is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is the warm steadiness of a heart that has learned to let life be what it is. Imagine sitting by a lake on a still evening. The water is calm, reflecting the sky. Clouds may drift across, but the reflection remains clear. This is equanimity, the mind that reflects life without distortion, the heart that remains open no matter what passes through dot. To cultivate equanimity, we practice letting go. Not once, but again and again. We let go of the demand that life must please us. We let go of the illusion that happiness will come only when circumstances are perfect. We let go of the idea that we must become someone else before we can be free. Each letting go is like dropping a stone from our hands. At first, the grip feels impossible to loosen. But as we release, our hands grow lighter. Our steps grow freer. Letting go does not mean giving up on life. It does not mean abandoning responsibilities or relationships. It means releasing the illusion of control. It means meeting life with open hands instead of clenched fists. It means saying, I will do my best, but I do not need to own every outcome. I will love fully, but I will not chain love with fear. I will live deeply, but I will not cling to permanence in a world that is always changing. This shift changes everything. The search that once drove us search for status, for approval, for security, loses its urgency. We still work, we still love, we still dream, but we are no longer enslaved by the results. Success does not inflate us. Failure does not shatter us. We begin to taste the unconditioned peace that is not dependent on circumstance. This peace is subtle at first. Perhaps you notice it in a quiet morning when the sun rises and you are simply present. Perhaps you taste it in meditation when the mind grows still and the breath flows freely. Perhaps you feel it in nature, standing before the vast ocean or under the stars, sensing that you belong to something greater than your worries. In these moments, you realize peace has never been absent. It was only hidden beneath the noise. The Buddha taught that this peace is your true home. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to chase it. You only need to return to it again and again until you remember it fully. Each moment of letting go, each breath of equanimity is a step back home. This is the great homecoming. It is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you already are. Beneath the striving, beneath the storms, beneath even the stories of identity, there is a stillness that cannot be broken. When you rest in that stillness, the search ends. Not because you have found something outside yourself, but because you have realized there was never anything missing. And yet, even in this realization, life continues. Challenges arise. Responsibilities call. The world still turns. But now you move differently. You act without attachment. You love without fear. You live without clinging. This is the fruit of the practice, not escape from life, but freedom within life. The Buddha compared it to a lotus flower. The lotus grows in muddy water, yet its petals remain unstained. In the same way, the awakened heart lives in the world of sorrow and joy, of gain and loss, of praise and blame, yet remains untouched by their weight. This is unconditioned peace, not the absence of mud, but the flowering beyond it dot. And here, our journey naturally begins to turn toward compassion in action. For once we touch this peace, once we remember our true home, the question arises, how shall we live in the world? How shall we carry this freedom into our families, our communities, our daily lives? Peace is not meant to be hoarded. It is meant to flow outward, like a river nourishing everything it touches. This next step will take us into that river, into the living expression of wisdom and peace through compassion, kindness, and service. For the journey does not end with personal liberation. It blossoms into the shared liberation of all beings. When the heart discovers peace, even for a moment, a new question arises. What now? What do I do with this freedom? Is it only for me, or is it meant to flow beyond me? The Buddha's answer was clear. Awakening is not only about personal escape from suffering. It is about transforming the way we live in the world, moment by moment, choice by choice. Peace is not meant to be locked away in meditation halls or silent retreats. It is meant to be lived in the kitchen, at the office, in the marketplace, in the simple encounters of everyday life. This is the teaching of compassion in action. Compassion is not an abstract feeling. It is the willingness to meet the suffering of others with an open heart and a steady hand. It is not pity, which looks down others. It is not guilt, which paralyzes us. Compassion is the recognition. Just like me, this person suffers. Just like me, this person longs to be free. From that recognition, action flows naturally. Think of how you feel when someone truly sees you, when they meet you not with judgment, but with kindness. That small moment of care can change everything. A smile from a stranger, a patient word from a friend, a gesture of generosity at the right time. These can be turning points in someone's day, even in someone's life. Compassion in action does not always look dramatic. Often, it is the smallest gestures that carry the deepest power dot in relationships. Compassion means listening when it would be easier to argue. It means choosing gentleness when anger tempts you. It means remembering that the other person is not your enemy, but a fellow human being struggling in their own way. The Buddha often taught that anger is like a torch that burns the one who carries it first. Compassion extinguishes the torch, not only sparing the other, but also freeing yourself. At work, compassion might mean speaking with respect to those who are overlooked, offering patience in a culture that rewards only speed, or refusing to step on others in the climb toward success. Many workplaces are saturated with stress, competition, and quiet despair. To bring compassion, there is like opening a window in a stifling room. It does not erase all difficulty, but it changes the air we breathe together. In society, compassion asks us to see beyond labels, beyond divisions of race, class, religion, or politics. It asks us to see the human being beneath the surface. This does not mean ignoring injustice or pretending harm does not exist. On the contrary, Compassion often demands courage to speak truth, to defend the vulnerable, to act where indifference would be easier. But the spirit of compassion ensures that our action is not poisoned by hatred. It is rooted in the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. One of the Buddha's great teachings on compassion is the practice of the four immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness is the wish for others to be happy. Compassion is the wish for others to be free from suffering. Sympathetic joy is the ability to rejoice in others' happiness rather than envy it. Equanimity is the steady heart that does not cling or reject. Together, they form the foundation of compassionate living. Imagine how different life feels when these qualities guide your actions. Instead of competing with your neighbor, you rejoice when they succeed. Instead of resenting their colleague, you remember their hidden struggles. Instead of collapsing under the world's pain, you meet it with a balanced, steady heart. This is not naive optimism. It is a radical way of living in a world that often encourages the opposite. Compassion also requires boundaries. To act with compassion does not mean to sacrifice yourself endlessly. The Buddha compared compassion to a strong arm reaching out to save someone drowning. The arm must be steady, grounded, and capable of holding both. If we collapse into burnout, if we lose ourselves completely, our compassion cannot last. True compassion includes the self. It means caring for yourself so that you can continue to care for others, not in practical terms. This might mean saying no when your energy is depleted. It might mean resting when the culture demands constant giving. It might mean forgiving yourself for being human, for not being able to save everyone. This balance ensures that compassion is sustainable, not a quick flame that burns out, but a steady fire that warms over a lifetime. The practice of compassion is also contagious. When you act with kindness, others are inspired to do the same. A single act of patience can ripple through a family. A single gesture of generosity can ripple through a community. Compassion spreads not because it is preached, but because it is felt. People may forget your words, but they rarely forget how you made them feel. This is why the Buddha described compassion as a boundless quality. Unlike wealth or possessions, compassion does not diminish when shared. The more you give, the more it grows. It is an inexhaustible resource, waiting only for us to open the heart. And as we embody compassion in action, we begin to see that it is not separate from wisdom. Compassion without wisdom can be blind, leading us to help in ways that harm. Wisdom without compassion can be cold, cutting, and distant. But together, they create balance. Wisdom sees clearly. Compassion acts kindly. One guides the other, like two wings of a bird. Without both, the bird cannot fly. The more we practice, the more compassion becomes natural. It ceases to be a duty and becomes a joy. We discover that giving is not a loss, but a fulfillment. We discover that kindness does not drain us, but nourishes us. We discover that the boundary between self and other begins to blur. Their suffering is our suffering. Their joy is our joy. In this way, compassion dissolves the illusion of separation and reveals the truth of interconnection. And yet, compassion must be tested in the hardest places, in the presence of conflict, in the face of cruelty, in the tension of a divided world. To embody compassion here is not easy, but it is precisely here that its power is most needed. Which means that our journey now turns toward the practice of compassion in conflict, the art of transforming anger into understanding, division into connection, hostility into peace. Compassion is easy to speak of in times of calm, but it is tested in the heat of conflict. When someone insults us, betrays us, or challenges what we believe most deeply, the instinct is not compassion. The instinct is defense. Anger flares. Words sharpen. We prepare to strike back, convinced that if we do not, we will lose respect, dignity, or safety. Yet it is in these very moments, the moments of tension, division, and pain, that compassion reveals its greatest power. Anger is not evil. It is a signal, a flare rising in the dark. It says, something feels threatened. Something feels unjust. Something is hurt. The Buddha never condemned anger simply for arising. He saw it as a natural human response. But he warned of its danger when it is left unchecked. Anger, if clung to, is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It consumes us first. The question is not whether anger will arise. The question is, what will we do with it? Will we feed it? Let it harden into hatred? Let it shape our words and actions? Or will we meet it with awareness and transform it into understanding? The first step is recognition. In the moment of conflict, before words are fired, we pause and name what is happening. Anger is here. By naming it, we create space. We shift from being anger to observing anger. Already, the fire loses some of its fuel. Already, the possibility of choice appears. The next step is compassion. Not compassion for the insult or the injustice, but compassion for the suffering that underlies anger, both in ourselves and in the other. When we are angry, it is often because we feel wounded, unseen, disrespected. When another person is angry, the same is true. Their anger is not born in a vacuum. It rises from their pain, their fear, their unmet needs. To see this is not to excuse harmful behavior, but to understand its roots. Imagine two people shouting across a wall. Each is certain the other is the enemy. But if the wall were transparent, they might see that both are simply afraid. Both are longing for safety. Both are protecting something precious. Compassion is the force that makes the wall transparent. It reveals the human heart beating beneath the armor. One practice here is deep listening. In conflict, most people do not truly listen. They prepare their defense, sharpen their counter-arguments, or withdraw entirely. But deep listening sets aside all of this. It says, I am here to understand, not to win. When practiced sincerely, it disarms hostility. The other person may not soften immediately, but they feel the difference. They feel heard. And to feel heard is often the beginning of healing. Another practice is speaking from vulnerability rather than blame. Instead of saying, you always do this, we say, when this happens, I feel hurt. Instead of, you are wrong, we say, this is how I experience it. These small shifts turn accusations into invitations. They open the door for dialogue, rather than slamming it shut with judgment. Compassion in conflict also requires boundaries. It does not mean tolerating abuse or staying silent in the face of harm. True compassion sometimes says no. It sets limits not with cruelty, but with clarity. It says, I will not harm you, but I will not allow harm to continue. This firmness is not a betrayal of compassion. It is its mature expression. When applied collectively, compassion has the power to heal even deep divisions. Societies, like individuals, become trapped in cycles of anger and mistrust. Groups define themselves against one another, clinging to identities that feel threatened by difference. Compassion here means remembering that beyond labels, beyond ideologies, beyond histories of harm, we are all human beings who long for safety and peace. This does not erase injustice, but it guides us to act in ways that heal rather than deepen the wound. History offers many examples of leaders who embodied this truth, who chose understanding over retaliation, dialogue over destruction. Their courage did not come from cold strategy. It came from compassion, from the refusal to let hatred define their hearts. Each of us, in our own lives, is invited to make the same choice again and again. And yet, this practice is not easy. Conflict touches our deepest fears. Division exposes our most fragile identities. To bring compassion here requires strength, patience, and humility. We will fail at times. We will lash out, withdraw, or cling to resentment. But each failure is another opportunity to begin again. Each attempt at compassion, even imperfect, plants a seed. Over time, these seeds grow. A conversation that once ended in shouting may end in listening. A relationship once fractured may begin to mend. A community once divided may begin to heal. Compassion does not guarantee immediate results, but it guarantees that we do not add more fire to the flames. It ensures that even in conflict, we remain aligned with peace. This is the way compassion transforms anger, not by suppressing it, but by meeting it with clarity, presence, and humanity. It is the art of turning walls into windows, enemies into fellow travelers, conflicts into opportunities for understanding God. And here lies the bridge. For even as compassion heals conflict, another great challenge remains: the deep, restless anxiety that underlies so much of modern life. This anxiety is not always about others. It is about ourselves, about the unknown future, about the fragile present, about the endless what-ifs that haunt our minds. If compassion is the medicine for conflict, mindfulness of impermanence is the medicine for anxiety. This is where our path turns next, to the practice of meeting anxiety not with fear, but with the wisdom that everything changes, and that change itself can be a doorway to peace. Anxiety is the quiet hum beneath modern life. Sometimes it is a roar, shaking the body with panic. Sometimes it is a whisper, lurking in the background of every decision. But always, it is there, the restless sense that something is about to go wrong, that the future is unsafe, that life is too fragile to trust. In today's world, anxiety is not rare. It has become the atmosphere we breathe, a constant companion shaping our days. Think of the many faces of anxiety. For some, it shows up in sleepless nights, lying awake while thoughts race in endless circles. For others, it appears in the workplace, a fear of failure no matter how much effort is given. For many, it arrives in the form of social unease, the fear of being judged or rejected. And for countless people, anxiety is tied to the great uncertainty of life itself: illness, loss, death, and the unknown future. Modern culture intensifies this anxiety. News cycles deliver a constant stream of crises. Social media bombards us with comparisons and judgments. Economic systems demand endless productivity, leaving little room for rest. The result is a nervous system always on high alert, as if danger lurks behind every door. The Buddha understood this restlessness long before the modern age. He taught that one of the great sources of human suffering is clinging to certainty in a world that is inherently uncertain. We long for guarantees of safety, of permanence, of control. But life offers no such promises. The body ages. Loved ones leave. Circumstances change. To demand certainty in an uncertain world is to invite anxiety at every turn. The teaching of impermanence, anicca, is the antidote. At first, impermanence may sound frightening. After all, it means nothing lasts. We fear that truth because we want to hold tightly to what we love. But when we look more deeply, impermanence is not the enemy. It is the very condition that makes life possible. Without impermanence, no wound could heal, no winter could give way to spring, no sorrow could ever pass. The same truth that takes away also gives. Anxiety shrinks when we learn to trust this flow. Instead of resisting change, we open to it. Instead of demanding certainty, we lean into the rhythm of rise and fall, knowing that nothing stays the same. This trust does not mean ignoring danger or pretending that suffering does not exist. It means meeting life as it is: fluid, unpredictable, alive. One practice here is mindful breathing. When anxiety surges, the breath grows shallow. The body prepares for a fight that never comes. But if we bring attention to the breath, we anchor ourselves in the present. Inhale slowly. Here is this moment. Exhale gently. This moment is already changing. Each breath is proof of impermanence. The old air leaving, the new air entering, the cycle of change keeping us alive. Another practice is to observe anxiety itself as impermanent. Instead of saying, "I am anxious," we note, anxiety is present. We watch how it rises, peaks, and fades. Even the strongest panic attack does not last forever. It may feel endless in the moment, but with awareness, we can see its beginning, middle, and end. This insight loosens its grip. We realize anxiety is not a permanent state. It is a passing weather system in the vast sky of awareness. We can also practice reframing uncertainty as possibility. Anxiety looks at the unknown and imagines disaster. But the unknown also holds joy, beauty, opportunity. A door that has not yet opened could lead to fear, or it could lead to wonder. When we remember this, uncertainty becomes less a threat and more a mystery. We cannot control the future, but we can meet it with curiosity rather than dread. The Buddha often used the image of a lute string. If the string is pulled too tight, it breaks. If it is too loose, it will not play. Anxiety is like a string pulled too tight. It is the tension of trying to control what cannot be controlled. The middle way teaches us to loosen the string, to find the balance where life can play its song. Compassion is essential here too. Many people judge themselves harshly for feeling anxious. They say, "I should be stronger. I should be calmer. I should not feel this way." But this judgment only adds another layer of suffering. Compassion says, anxiety is part of being human. It is not a failure. It is a signal that I long for safety in an uncertain world. To meet anxiety with kindness is to begin to heal it. When we live with awareness of impermanence, we discover a new kind of courage. We realize that fear of change cannot stop change from happening, but it can stop us from living. To embrace impermanence is to reclaim our life from fear. It is to say, yes, everything is uncertain. Yes, everything changes. But because it changes, I will love fully now. I will live deeply now. I will not wait for guarantees that never come. Imagine holding a flower in your hand. You know it will wither. But does that make its beauty less? Or does it make its beauty more? Impermanence does not steal the value of the flower. It gives it. In the same way, our lives shine more brightly because they do not last forever. Anxiety blinds us to this truth. Awareness of impermanence restores it. And yet, even as we begin to embrace impermanence, another challenge arises: how to live day by day with this truth without collapsing into despair. How to carry the awareness of change not as a burden, but as a source of freedom. This is where our journey leads next, into the art of living moment by moment, grounded in impermanence yet free to experience joy, love, and wonder in the fragile beauty of now. To accept impermanence is not to resign ourselves to despair. It is to awaken to the fragile beauty of life as it truly is. When we see clearly that nothing lasts, we stop taking everything for granted. Each breath becomes a gift. Each sunrise becomes a miracle. Each smile, each touch, each shared moment becomes infinitely precious because we know it cannot be repeated. Impermanence, far from robbing life of meaning, fills it with depth. Think of how we treat water when we believe the well is endless. We waste it, neglect it, let it run without thought. But when the well is nearly dry, every drop becomes sacred. Impermanence reminds us that the well of life is not endless. One day, each of us will take our final breath. One day, every person we love will be gone. This truth, though difficult, is also what makes every drop of experience sacred. To live with impermanence day by day is to live with gratitude. Gratitude does not mean denying hardship or pretending everything is perfect. It means recognizing the gifts that exist even within the ordinary. The sound of birds in the morning, the warmth of a cup of tea, the laughter of a friend. These moments pass quickly, but they are no less real. Gratitude catches them before they vanish unnoticed. Another practice is presence. Anxiety pulls us into the future. Regret drags us into the past. But impermanence calls us back to now. This moment will never return. This breath, this heartbeat, this glance across the room, they are here once and only once. When we live fully in the present, life stops being a blur. It becomes vivid, textured, alive. Love also changes when we embrace impermanence. Many people cling to love out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of being alone. But clinging suffocates love. It turns affection into possession. True love arises when we hold lightly, knowing that the one we love is not ours to keep. We cherish them not because they will last forever, but because they are here now. This makes love freer, deeper, and more tender. Loss, too, becomes less unbearable when viewed through impermanence. Grief will always hurt, but within grief, there is also gratitude, the recognition that we were blessed to have shared time with someone who could never stay forever. Their impermanence was always part of the gift. This perspective does not erase sorrow, but it infuses sorrow with meaning. Freedom emerges from this way of living. When we stop demanding permanence, we stop fearing change. We are no longer chained to the illusion that we can control life. We realize that security does not come from holding on, but from letting go. We learn to trust the river instead of clinging to the shore. This trust gives us courage to live more boldly, to love more openly, to face uncertainty without collapsing. Imagine walking through a forest in autumn. The leaves are brilliant shades of red and gold. You know they will soon fall, and that is what makes their beauty so moving. If the leaves were always the same, their colors would not matter. It is the fleeting nature of the moment that pierces the heart. Life is the same. Its impermanence is not a flaw. It is the source of its wonder. The Buddha often compared life to a bubble on a stream, to dew on a blade of grass, to a flash of lightning. These images are not meant to frighten us, but to wake us up. They remind us that life is brief, and therefore every moment matters. When we truly see this, we stop wasting time on resentment, on petty arguments, on endless striving for things that do not last. We focus instead on what truly matters: love, kindness, wisdom. Presence. Living with impermanence does not mean withdrawing from life. It means diving more deeply into it. We savor, we engage, we serve, we create, not because it will last forever, but because it is precious precisely as it is. Impermanence makes artists of us all, urging us to paint with bold strokes, while the canvas is still before us. And so, anxiety fades, not because uncertainty disappears, but because uncertainty is no longer the enemy. It becomes the canvas of possibility. Each day is uncertain, and therefore full of potential. Each moment is fragile, and therefore infinitely valuable. This shift transforms fear into freedom. But even as we embrace impermanence and discover joy in the fragile beauty of now, another great challenge remains: the pull of attachment. We may understand impermanence, yet still cling desperately to people, possessions, and identities, hoping they will anchor us. It is this clinging that creates suffering, even when the truth of impermanence is clear. And so our journey now turns to the next teaching: the art of letting go, of releasing attachment without losing love, of finding freedom not by holding tighter, but by opening the hand. Even after we see the truth of impermanence, even after we taste moments of peace in the present, the human heart continues to cling. We cling to people, to possessions, to identities, to ideas. We cling because we believe these things will keep us safe, give us meaning, or prove our worth. And yet, clinging is precisely what makes suffering heavier. The tighter we hold, the more painful it feels when life inevitably changes. Think of a rope pulled too tight in your hands. At first, the tension feels like security. You believe the rope will hold you steady. But as time passes, your hands begin to burn. The grip itself causes pain. And when the rope is suddenly pulled away, the pain is even sharper. Attachment is like that rope. We think it will protect us, but in truth, it burns us. We cling to relationships. We want love to stay exactly as it is. We fear the day it changes, so we tighten our grip. But this very grip suffocates the relationship. Love cannot breathe under the weight of possession. Instead of enjoying the person before us, we spend our energy trying to control them, trying to guarantee they will never leave, never change, never disappoint. And in doing so, we create the very distance we fear. We cling to possessions. We convince ourselves that happiness depends on what we own: the house, the car, the clothes, the technology. For a brief moment, acquiring something new may bring pleasure, but soon the shine fades. Then we want more, better, newer. The cycle never ends. Our closets overflow, yet our hearts remain empty. The Buddha called this the hungry ghost mind, always consuming, never satisfied. We cling to identities. We tell ourselves stories about who we are: successful, intelligent, attractive, strong. These identities feel like anchors in a changing world. But when life shifts, when we lose a job, when our body ages, when circumstances change, the identity cracks. If we cling too tightly, we collapse with it. True identity, the Buddha taught, is fluid. To cling to a fixed self in a world of change is to invite endless suffering. We even cling to ideas. We become attached to beliefs, opinions, worldviews. When someone challenges them, we feel personally attacked, as if our very existence is threatened. This clinging fuels conflict, division, even violence. And yet, beliefs are just thoughts, just perspectives, shaped by culture, upbringing, and experience. To cling to them as absolute truth is to build walls where bridges are needed. Buddha described attachment as one of the core roots of suffering. He did not say we should withdraw from life, rejecting all relationships, possessions, or ideas. He said we should learn to hold them lightly. This is the art of letting go, not abandoning life, but loosening the grip. Letting go does not mean indifference. It does not mean we stop caring about people or things. It means we stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. It means we love without demanding permanence. We own without being owned. We live without clinging to fixed identities. Letting go transforms attachment into appreciation. Instead of grasping, we cherish. Instead of fearing loss, we honor presence. One powerful practice here is visualization. Imagine holding a handful of sand. If you squeeze tightly, the grains slip through your fingers. But if you hold gently with an open palm, the sand rests easily. Life is like that sand. The tighter we grasp, the more it slips away. The gentler we hold, the more we can enjoy its presence. Another practice is reflecting on impermanence in daily life. When you drink a cup of tea, remind yourself, this taste will not last. When you hug a loved one, remind yourself, this moment is fleeting. Instead of clinging, this reflection deepens gratitude. You savor without demanding forever. Letting go also means releasing the illusion of control. So much of our suffering comes from believing we can control outcomes, people, or the future. But control is an illusion. We can influence, but we cannot command. When we accept this, we stop exhausting ourselves with impossible demands. We begin to flow with life rather than fight it. Compassion supports this path. Many people cling not out of greed, but out of fear of abandonment, fear of loss, fear of emptiness. To simply tell ourselves, let go, is not enough. We must also soothe the fear that drives clinging. Compassion says, it is okay to be afraid. It is okay to want safety. But true safety is not found in grasping. True safety is found in openness, in trust, in freedom. Letting go is not a single act. It is a daily practice. Each day, we notice where the grip tightens. Each day, we breathe, soften, and release a little more. Some days the grip returns. That is natural. The practice is not about perfection. It is about remembering again and again that freedom comes not from holding tighter, but from opening the hand. And yet, even as we loosen our grip, another challenge arises: how to live joyfully and fully while still knowing that everything is passing. If we let go too much, life may feel empty. If we cling too much, life becomes painful. The path forward is not withdrawal, but balance, the freedom to release while still embracing life's beauty. This is where our journey now turns into the second part of this teaching, the art of joyful release, of celebrating life while letting it flow, of living lightly without losing depth. Letting go is often misunderstood as a bleak detachment, a turning away from life's color. People fear that if they stop clinging, they will stop caring. They imagine monks sitting in caves, stripped of joy, stripped of connection, stripped of humanity. But the truth is far brighter. Letting go is not a subtraction from life, it is an addition. It does not strip life of richness. It reveals it. When we release the desperate grip of attachment, we gain the freedom to truly see, to truly taste, to truly love. Think of a child at play. They build a sandcastle on the shore with fierce delight. Every tower, every moat, every tiny detail is crafted with full attention. And then, when the tide comes in, they do not weep. They laugh as the waves wash it away. Why? Because they were never clinging to permanence. They were engaged, but not attached. This is joyful release. To play fully, to love fully, to live fully, without demanding that anything last forever. Joyful release means savoring the moment precisely because it will not stay. The sunset is beautiful because it fades. The song moves us because it ends. The meal is delicious because it is fleeting. Instead of resisting this truth, we celebrate it. Impermanence becomes not a threat, but the very source of joy. One practice here is mindful enjoyment. When eating, do not rush. Taste each bite as if it were the last, because in truth, it is. That bite will never return. When walking, notice the texture of the ground, the rhythm of the steps, the air against your skin. When speaking with a loved one, listen as if this conversation were a once-in-a-lifetime event, because it is. Every moment is unique. Joyful release opens our eyes to this uniqueness and fills us with gratitude. Another practice is generosity. When we give freely, without clinging to possessions, we discover a deeper joy than any ownership could provide. The Buddha often said that the joy of giving surpasses the joy of receiving. To release what we have, whether time, attention, or resources, is to participate in the flow of life. It is to trust that we are not diminished by giving, but expanded. Joyful release also transforms relationships. Instead of gripping loved ones with fear, we hold them with appreciation. We stop demanding that they never change, never leave, never disappoint. We recognize that their impermanence makes every moment with them sacred. This does not lessen love. It deepens it. To say, I know you cannot stay forever, and that is why I treasure you now, is perhaps the purest form of love. We can also apply joyful release to our identities. Instead of clinging to who we think we must be successful, admired, strong, we allow ourselves to change. We let ourselves outgrow old roles. We let ourselves evolve. Identity becomes less of a prison and more of a dance. We try, we stumble, we learn, we begin again. Instead of saying, "This is who I must be forever," we say, "This is who I am today, and tomorrow may bring something new." This openness lightens the heart. Joyful release is not about withdrawal from responsibility. It is not an excuse to avoid commitments or to live carelessly. It is about carrying commitments with ease, knowing they are not chains but choices. It is about acting with full presence and then releasing the outcome. We give our best and then we let life unfold. The paradox is that the less we cling, the more we are able to give ourselves fully. When we no longer fear loss, we stop holding back. We love more deeply because we are no longer guarded. We create more boldly because we are no longer paralyzed by the fear of failure. We live more fully because we are no longer waiting for guarantees. This is the joy of release, not less engagement, but more. The Buddha once told the story of a monk carrying a precious porcelain teacup. Every morning, the monk would hold the cup and remind himself, "This cup is already broken." At first, this might sound grim, but in truth, it filled the monk with gratitude. Because he accepted its fragility, he cherished it more. Every sip of tea was sacred. Every glance at the cup was joyful. And when the cup eventually did break, the monk did not grieve. He had loved it fully all along. We too can live this way. We can look at the people, places, and moments in our lives and remember, they are already passing. This truth does not diminish them. It enriches them. It gives us permission to love without fear, to live without regret, to release without despair. In this way, letting go and joy are not opposites. They are companions. Letting go clears the space. Joy fills it. Together, they create a life that is light yet deep, free yet full. And yet, there is one more challenge. Even when we taste the freedom of release, even when we savor the joy of impermanence, the mind still asks, but what is the purpose of it all? Why live? Why strive? Why love if everything passes? This question haunts many hearts. It is the ache of meaning, the search for something beyond the flow of change. To face this question honestly is the next step of our journey. And so we now turn to the exploration of meaning and purpose, not as fixed destinations, but as living expressions of the path. When people pause long enough to step off the treadmill of striving, when they begin to breathe more freely and see life's impermanence with clearer eyes, another question often rises like a shadow. What is the point of it all? If everything changes, if nothing lasts, if even the people we love and the things we build eventually dissolve, then what gives life meaning? This question has haunted humanity across cultures and centuries. Philosophers debate it. Poets lament it. Ordinary people whisper it in the quiet hours of the night. Beneath the busy surface of life, the search for meaning is one of our deepest hungers. We long to know that our lives matter, that our actions have weight, that we are part of something greater than the brief flicker of our years. In modern life, this hunger often collides with despair. The world tells us to create meaning through achievement, through wealth, through recognition. But as soon as we reach one milestone, the satisfaction fades. We work decades for success, only to find that it cannot fill the emptiness inside. We pour ourselves into careers, only to retire and wonder what remains. We devote ourselves to appearances, only to realize that beauty fades. The promises of the world are fragile, and when they crumble, people are left with a hollow ache. Was it all for nothing? The Buddha addressed this hunger directly. He did not offer a single rigid definition of purpose. Instead, he revealed that meaning is not found in clinging to what passes, but in awakening to what is eternal within the passing. Compassion, wisdom, presence. He showed that the search for meaning outside ourselves, in possessions, in status, in fleeting pleasures, always ends in disappointment. But when we look within, when we awaken to our true nature and act from it, meaning arises naturally. This is why the Buddha often emphasized the Four Noble Truths as both a diagnosis and a path of purpose. Life involves suffering. Suffering has causes craving, attachment, ignorance. There is a way beyond suffering. That way is the Eightfold Path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Following this path is not about obeying rules. It is about living in alignment with truth. It is about discovering a way of being that transforms even ordinary life into meaningful life. When we act with compassion, meaning arises. When we speak truthfully, meaning arises. When we use our work to uplift rather than exploit, meaning arises. When we cultivate awareness and peace within ourselves, meaning arises. These are not abstract ideals. They are lived experiences. They show us that purpose is not found in some distant goal, but in the choices we make right now. Consider a candle. Its flame does not last forever, but while it burns, it gives light. Its purpose is not measured by its duration, but by its illumination. In the same way, our lives may be brief, but they shine with meaning when they bring light to others. We cannot control how long we live, but we can control how brightly we burn. This truth also transforms our relationship with death. Many people fear death because they believe it renders life meaningless. But from a Buddhist perspective, death is not the end of meaning. It is simply part of the great cycle of change. If we live with compassion and awareness, our actions ripple outward, touching others long after our bodies are gone. Our kindness shapes memories. Our wisdom shapes communities. Our love shapes generations. Meaning is not erased by impermanence. It is carried forward through the impact we leave. Yet meaning is not only about impact on others. It is also about intimacy with life itself. To taste a peach fully, to hear music deeply, to hold a loved one with presence. These acts are meaningful even if no one remembers them tomorrow. Purpose is not always grand. Sometimes it is found in the smallest gestures, the briefest moments of being fully alive. This is why mindfulness is so central to the Buddhist path. Mindfulness transforms the ordinary into the sacred. Washing dishes can be meaningless drudgery, or it can be a meditation, a moment of care for the hands that serve, the water that flows, the bowl that will nourish. Walking down a street can be routine, or it can be a celebration of breath, step, and sky. Mindfulness reveals that meaning is not in the task itself, but in the way we meet it. Still, the modern heart often resists this truth. We are conditioned to seek meaning in grand narratives, the legacy we leave, the mark we make, the goals we accomplish. But Buddhism gently invites us to let go of this burden. It whispers, your life does not need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. It needs only to be awake. It needs only to be kind. It needs only to be lived with presence. This shift is radical. It frees us from the anxiety of measuring our worth by external standards. It reminds us that the search for meaning is not something to be completed, but something to be lived moment by moment. It reminds us that impermanence does not make life meaningless. It makes every moment meaningful. And yet, one question remains. How do we sustain this sense of meaning in the face of despair, loss, or failure? How do we keep purpose alive when life feels heavy or hopeless? The answer lies in deepening our connection to something larger than the self, whether through compassion, community, or the spiritual insight that all beings are interconnected. This is where our journey will now turn, to the second half of this exploration, the discovery of meaning not as an individual possession, but as a shared and sacred reality that links us all. Meaning becomes richer when it expands beyond me. The modern world often tells us that purpose is an individual project, that we must find ourselves, define our legacy, chase our dreams. While there is truth in discovering what matters personally, the deepest sense of purpose rarely comes from looking inward alone. It blossoms when we realize that we are part of something larger, that our lives are woven into the lives of others, that our joy and our suffering are never truly separate. The Buddha taught this through the principle of interdependence, sometimes called dependent origination. Nothing exists in isolation. Every being, every breath, every moment is connected to countless causes and conditions. The food we eat depends on the farmer, the soil, the rain, the sun. The clothes we wear depend on the labor of hands we will never see. Even the thoughts we think are shaped by cultures, teachers, and experiences beyond our control. To live is to participate in a vast web of interconnection. When we see this clearly, the search for meaning changes. It is no longer about my purpose versus your purpose. It becomes about how we, together, contribute to the flourishing of life. Purpose becomes less about achievement and more about relationship. It becomes less about leaving a mark and more about leaving kindness, healing, and light where we can. Shared meaning emerges most clearly in compassion. When we act to ease another's suffering, our lives gain immediate purpose. When we share joy, when we offer understanding, when we extend a hand, we step into the sacred work of being human. No grand philosophy is needed, only the willingness to remember that others, too, long to be free. Think of moments when you felt most alive. Perhaps it was helping a friend through grief, or standing with others in a cause larger than yourself, or simply sharing laughter around a table. These moments shine in memory, not because they advanced personal ambition, but because they revealed connection. They showed that your life is part of a greater whole. Buddhism captures this truth in the Bodhisattva ideal. A Bodhisattva is not content with personal liberation. Out of compassion, they vow to help all beings awaken, to walk alongside others until suffering is transformed everywhere. You need not wear robes or live in a monastery to embody this spirit. Each of us, in our own small way, can live as a bodhisattva, caring not only for our own peace, but for the peace of those around us. That shared meaning also arises through community, or sangha. The path is difficult to walk alone. Doubt arises. Old habits return. The mind resists. But in the presence of others who share the journey, our resolve strengthens. A community of practice, whether large or small, reminds us that we do not need to carry life alone. When we sit together, breathe together, listen together, meaning multiplies. Even in broader society, we can discover purpose by working toward collective well-being. Whether through environmental care, social justice, education, or simple neighborly kindness, each action that serves the whole gives life a direction larger than the self. Impermanence reminds us that we will not live forever. But interconnection reminds us that while we live, we can contribute to something that endures beyond us. This shared purpose is sacred, not because it is dramatic, but because it is true. Every act of kindness ripples outward. Every moment of presence touches the world. We may never see the full effects of our actions, but they remain, woven into the fabric of life. In this way, meaning is not a possession we must grasp, but a gift we continually give and receive. To live for all beings does not mean neglecting ourselves. It means seeing that caring for ourselves and caring for others are not two separate paths. When we nourish our own well-being, we are more capable of serving others. When we serve others, our own hearts grow lighter. Self and other are not separate. They are two sides of the same river. And so, the search for meaning, which begins with the question, what is the point of it all, ends not with a single answer, but with a way of living. Meaning is discovered in presence, in compassion, in community, in the recognition that every moment of awareness and kindness matters. Life's impermanence no longer makes it meaningless. It makes it urgent, precious, sacred. This understanding prepares us for the final stage of our journey, bringing everything together. We have explored stress, relationships, imperfection, striving, silence, awareness, compassion, impermanence, and meaning. Now, as we move into the closing chapter, we turn toward integration. How do we carry these truths into daily life? How do we live not as seekers chasing peace, but as beings who embody peace here and now? This is the heart of the conclusion, a gentle call to wholeness, to hope, to living fully awakened in the present moment. Throughout this journey, we have walked through the landscapes of stress, anxiety, striving, imperfection, silence, awareness, compassion, impermanence, and meaning. Each has revealed a piece of the human struggle, and each has opened a door into Buddhist wisdom that offers freedom. But the path does not end with understanding each piece separately. The path ripens when we weave them together, when the teachings cease to be concepts and become the fabric of how we live. Integration is where wisdom becomes life. Integration means we stop treating spirituality as an escape from daily reality. It means we bring mindfulness into the traffic jam, compassion into the argument, silence into the chaos of our homes, awareness into the workplace, impermanence into our parenting, and gratitude into every small moment. It means we no longer see practice as something we do only on the meditation cushion. We see practice as the way we breathe, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we meet each moment. Consider stress. We learn that stress often comes from the belief that life must conform to our demands. Integration does not mean eliminating stress entirely. It means meeting stress with awareness, recognizing its roots, and responding with balance. A stressful email at work becomes an opportunity to pause, breathe, and choose a response that is grounded rather than reactive. Stress is no longer an enemy to fight. It becomes a teacher, reminding us to return to presence. Consider relationships. We saw how clinging, expectation, and fear often erode love. Integration means we practice mindful communication, deep listening, and compassionate presence with those closest to us. It means replacing the impulse to control with the willingness to understand. A conflict with a partner becomes a moment to practice compassion. A disagreement with a friend becomes a chance to remember that beneath the anger is pain, and beneath the pain is longing for connection. Consider imperfection. We discovered that trying to fix or perfect ourselves is endless suffering. Integration means embracing our flaws as part of our humanity. It means allowing the mosaic of our being to shine, cracks and all. When we make a mistake, we respond with humility rather than shame, with learning rather than self-condemnation. We live as imperfect beings who are already whole, already enough, even as we continue to grow. Consider striving. We saw how endless self-improvement exhausts the spirit. Integration means practicing the middle way, balancing effort with rest, growth with acceptance. It means remembering that we are not projects to be completed, but lives to be lived. Each day becomes an act of gentle alignment, not a desperate race towards some future self. Consider silence. We discovered the healing of noble silence, a presence that holds pain without words. Integration means making space for silence in our lives, even in small ways. It might be a few minutes of stillness before the day begins, or a pause in conversation to truly listen, or a deep breath before responding. Silence becomes not an absence, but a gift, a way of meeting life with presence and compassion. Consider awareness. We learned that we are not the storm, but the sky beneath the storm. Integration means remembering this in the midst of life's turbulence. When anger arises, we note it. When fear surges, we observe it. We act not from blind reaction, but from clarity. We become the steady witness, the open sky, the one who can hold all passing weather without being swept away. Consider compassion. We saw how compassion in action transforms not only ourselves, but also the world around us. Integration means embodying compassion in daily encounters with family, coworkers, strangers, even those who oppose us. It means remembering that every person we meet carries their own suffering and that kindness is never wasted. Compassion becomes our default posture, not because we force it, but because it flows naturally from a heart awakened to interconnection. Consider impermanence. We recognize that everything changes and that clinging only multiplies suffering. Integration means living with gratitude, savoring each moment as fragile and precious. It means holding lightly, letting go, celebrating the beauty of what is rather than mourning the impossibility of forever. Every goodbye becomes a reminder to love more deeply while we can. Every change becomes a teacher showing us how to trust the flow and consider meaning. We explored how true purpose is not in possessions or achievements, but in presence, compassion, and connection. Integration means living each day as meaningful, not because of grand accomplishments, but because of small acts of awareness and kindness. It means seeing that we do not need to chase meaning. It arises when we live awake, when we live for one another, when we live aligned with truth. To integrate these teachings is to shift from chasing peace to embodying peace. It is to realize that peace is not at the end of the path. Peace is the path. Every mindful breath, every compassionate act, every moment of letting go is already peace in motion. But integration is not about perfection. We will forget. We will slip. We will lose our balance. That is part of the path. Integration is the practice of remembering again and again. Each time we fall into stress, we remember awareness. Each time we cling, we remember impermanence. Each time we lash out, we remember compassion. Each time we despair, we remember meaning. Each time we scatter, we return to silence. The path is not linear. It is a spiral, bringing us deeper with every return. And so, integration is less about achieving a final state and more about cultivating a way of being. It is about walking through life as a living embodiment of the teachings, imperfect yet sincere, stumbling yet returning, always open, always learning. And yet, as we approach the end of this journey together, one final step remains. How do we bring closure to the teachings? How do we end not with theory, but with a blessing, a call to hope, a vision of what life can be when we live awake? This is where the conclusion awaits, the gentle gathering of all threads into a single fabric, the final invitation to live as peace itself. As we arrive at the final steps of this long journey, we pause to gather all that has been explored. We began with the pain of stress, the hunger for security, the wounds of imperfection, the exhaustion of striving. We walked through silence, awareness, compassion, impermanence, and the search for meaning. We have seen the storms of the modern mind, and we have discovered the timeless wisdom of the Buddha that offers a way through. Now, in closing, we are invited to step into a new way of living, not as seekers always chasing peace, but as beings who embody it. Living awake is not about escaping life. It is not about transcending into some distant realm or waiting for a perfect future. It is about meeting this moment fully. It is about walking into your workplace, your home, your relationships, and carrying awareness with you. It is about greeting your loved ones with presence, treating strangers with compassion, and facing challenges with equanimity. To live awake is to recognize that every moment is practice. Every moment is sacred. Embodying peace does not mean you will never feel anger, fear, or grief again. These emotions are part of the human experience. Embodying peace means that when these storms arise, you are no longer lost in them. You remember the sky within. You breathe. You choose compassion over retaliation, gratitude over despair, presence over distraction. Peace becomes the ground you stand on, not a distant prize you hope to reach. This way of living is not only for saints or monks. It is for you here now. It is for the parent trying to raise children in a chaotic world. It is for the worker facing deadlines and uncertainty. It is for the student struggling with pressure. It is for the elder reflecting on a life of change. Peace is not reserved for the few. It is the birthright of all beings. The Buddha often compared awakening to remembering. We are not adding something new to ourselves. We are remembering what has always been true, that beneath the noise, beneath the striving, beneath the clinging, there is a stillness that is already free. To live awake is simply to return, again and again, to that stillness. As we close, let us return to the image of the lotus. The lotus grows in muddy water, yet it rises unstained, blooming with beauty above the surface. Our lives, too, unfold in muddy waters of stress, of uncertainty, of imperfection. But we are not defined by the mud. We are defined by our capacity to rise, to bloom, to shine with compassion and wisdom, no matter the conditions. Hope is found here, not in denying suffering, but in transforming it. Hope is the recognition that no matter how dark the night, the dawn comes. No matter how heavy the burden, it can be set down. No matter how deep the wound, healing is possible. Buddhism does not promise a life without pain. It promises that we can meet pain with such clarity, compassion, and courage that it no longer enslaves us. Action flows naturally from this hope. To live awake is to act not with desperation, but with steadiness. To care for the earth, to care for one another, to care for ourselves, to bring kindness where there is cruelty, patience where there is haste, silence where there is noise, understanding where there is division. These small actions, repeated day after day, become the seeds of transformation. They ripple outward, touching more lives than we can ever know. And so the invitation is simple, yet profound. Live awake. Embody peace. Do not wait for another life, another time, another condition. Begin here. Begin now. With this breath, with this step, with this choice. If you forget, begin again. If you fall, stand again. If you despair, hope again. The path is not about perfection. It is about returning again and again to the truth that you are already whole, already enough, already free. May your life be a candle that gives light. May your heart be a lotus that blooms unstained. May your steps be gentle, your words be kind, your presence be a refuge. May you live not as one searching endlessly for peace, but as peace itself, embodied in every moment. This is the way of integration. This is the closing of the journey. This is the beginning of a new life awake, compassionate, free,